Chapter 4 of Captains Courageous. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Captains Courageous by Rudyard Kipling. Chapter 4. Harvey waked to find the first half, at breakfast, the forecastle door drawn to a crack, and every square inch of the schooner singing its own tune. The black bulk of the cook balanced behind the tiny galley, over the glare of the stove, and the pots and pans in the pierced wooden board before it jarred and racketed to each plunge. Up and up the forecastle climbed, yearning and surging and quivering, and then, with a clear sickle-like swoop, came down into the seas. He could hear the flaring bows cut and squelch, and there was a pause ere the divided waters came down on the deck above, like a volley of buckshot. Followed the woolly sound of the cable in the hawse-hole, a grunt and squeal of the windlass, a yaw, a punt, and a kick, and the We're Here gathered herself together to repeat the motions. "Now ashore," he heard Long Jack saying, "ye've chores, and ye must do them in any weather. Here we're well clear of the fleet, and we've no chores, and that's a blessin'. Good night, all." He passed like a big snake from the table to his bunk, and began to smoke. Tom Platt followed his example. Uncle Salters, with Penn, fought his way up the ladder to stand his watch, and the cook set for the second half. It came out of its bunks as the others had entered theirs, with a shake and a yawn. It ate till it could eat no more, and then Manuel filled his pipe with some terrible tobacco, crouched himself between the pawl post and a forward bunk, cocked his feet up on the table, and smiled tender and indolent smiles at the smoke. Dan lay at length in his bunk, wrestling with a gaudy, gilt-stopped accordion, whose tunes went up and down with the pitching of the We're Here. The cook, his shoulders against the locker where he kept the fried pies (Dan was fond of fried pies), peeled potatoes, with one eye on the stove in event of too much water finding its way down the pipe, and the general smell and smother were past all description. Harvey considered affairs, wondered that he was not deathly sick, and crawled into his bunk again, as the softest and safest place, while Dan struck up "I Don't Want to Play in Your Yard" as accurately as the wild jerks allowed. "How long is this for?" Harvey asked of Manuel. "Till she get a little quiet, and we can roll to trawl. Perhaps to night. Perhaps 2 days more. You do not like, eh, what?" "I should have been crazy sick a week ago, but it doesn't seem to upset me now much." "That is because we make you a fisherman, these days. If I was you, when I come to Gloucester I would give 2, 3 big candles for my good luck." "Give who?" "To be sure, the Virgin of our church on the hill. She is very good to fishermen all the time. That is why so few of us Portuguese men ever are drowned." "You're a Roman Catholic, then?" "I am a Madeira man. I am not a Porto Rico boy. Shall I be Baptist, then? Eh, what? I always give candles. 2, 3 more when I come to Gloucester. The good Virgin she never forgets me, Manuel." "I don't sense it that way," Tom Platt put in from his bunk, his scarred face lit up by the glare of a match as he sucked at his pipe. "It stands to reason the sea's the sea, and you'll get just about what's goin', candles or kerosene, for that matter." "'Tis a mighty good thing," said Long Jack, "to have a friend at court, though. I'm o' Manuel's way o' thinkin'. About 10 years back I was crew to a South Boston market boat. We was off Minot's Ledge with a northeaster, butt first atop of us, thicker'n burgoo. The old man was drunk. His chin was waggin' on the tiller, and I says to myself, if ever I stick my boat hook into T wharf again, I'll show the saints fwhat manner of craft they saved me out of. Now I'm here, as ye can well see, and the model of the dirty old Kathleen, that took me a month to make, I give it to the priest, and he hung it up forninst the altar. There's more sense in giving a model that's by way of being a work of art than any candle.
Ye can buy candles at store, but a model shows the good saints you've took trouble and are grateful."
"Do you believe that, Irish?" said Tom Platt, turning on his elbow.
"Would I do it if I did not, Ohio?"
"Well, Enoch Fuller he made a model of the old Ohio, and she's to Salem Museum now. Mighty pretty model, too, but I guess Enoch he never done it for no sacrifice, and the way I take it is—" There were the makings of an hour-long discussion of the kind that fishermen love, where the talk runs in shouting circles and no one proves anything at the end, had not Dan struck up this cheerful rhyme: "Up jumped the mackerel with his striped back, Reef in the mainsail and haul on the tack, For it's windy weather." Here Long Jack joined in:
"And it's blowy weather. When the winds begin to blow, pipe all hands together."
Dan went on, with a cautious look at Tom Platt, holding the accordion low in the bunk:
"Up jumped the cod with his chuckle head, Went to the main chains to heave at the lead, For it's windy weather," etc. Tom Platt seemed to be hunting for something. Dan crouched lower, but sang louder: "Up jumped the flounder that swims to the ground, Chucklehead, Chucklehead, mind where ye sound." Tom Platt's huge rubber boot whirred across the foc'sle and caught Dan's uplifted arm. There was war between the man and the boy ever since Dan had discovered that the mere whistling of that tune would make him angry as he heaved the lead. "Thought I'd fetch ye," said Dan, returning the gift with precision. "Ef you don't like my music, git out your fiddle. I ain't goin' to lie here all day and listen to you and Long Jack arguin' about candles. Fiddle, Tom Platt, or I'll learn Harve here the tune." Tom Platt leaned down to a locker and brought up an old white fiddle. Manuel's eye glistened, and from somewhere behind the pawl post he drew out a tiny guitar-like thing with wire strings, which he called a natchet. "'Tis a concert," said Long Jack, beaming through the smoke. "A regular Boston concert." There was a burst of spray as the hatch opened, and Disko in yellow oilskins descended. "You're just in time, Disko. What ye doin' outside?"
"Just this."
He dropped on to the lockers with the push and heave of the We're Here.
"We're singin' to keep our breakfast down. You lead, of course, Disko," said Long Jack.
"Guess there ain't more'n about 2 old songs I know, and you've heard 'em both."
His excuses were cut short by Tom Platt launching into a most dolorous tune, like unto the moaning of winds and the creaking of masts. With his eyes fixed on the beams above, Disko began this ancient ditty, Tom Platt flourishing all around him to make the tune and words fit a little.
"There is a crack packet of fame. She hails from New York, and the Dreadnought's her name. You may talk of your flyers, Swallowtail and Black Ball, but the Dreadnought's the packet that can beat them all. Now the Dreadnought she lies in the River Mersey, because of the tugboat to take her to sea. But when she's off soundings, you shortly will know." Chorus. "She's the Liverpool packet, oh Lord, let her go. Now the Dreadnought she's howling 'cross the banks of Newfoundland, where the water's all shallow and the bottom's all sand. Says all the little fishes that swim to and fro." Chorus. "She's the Liverpool packet, oh Lord, let her go."
There were scores of verses, for he worked the Dreadnought every mile of the way between Liverpool and New York as conscientiously as though he were on her deck, and the accordion pumped and the fiddle squeaked beside him. Tom Platt followed with something about the "rough and tough McGinn" who would pilot the vessel in. Then they called on Harvey, who felt very flattered, to contribute to the entertainment, but all that he could remember were some pieces of Skipper Ireson's Ride that he had been taught at the camp school in the Adirondacks. It seemed that they might be appropriate to the time and place, but he had no more than mentioned the title when Disko brought down one foot with a bang and cried, "Don't go on, young feller. That's a mistaken judgment. One of the worst kind, too, because it's catchin' to the ear."
"I oughter have warned you," said Dan. "That allus fetches Dad." "What's wrong?" said Harvey, surprised and a little angry.
"All you're going to say," said Disko.